Howdy, and welcome back to PowerWash Simulator, where today we're going to be cleaning the fortune teller's wagon. The Uncanny Franny message is saying, check out my new wheels. Everyone says I could talk the hind legs off a turkey, so I'm joining the traveling fairground as a fortune teller. Got the name and now I've got the ride. Picked it up from an old lady at a bargain price online. I was the only bidder. She wasn't happy and said she'd curse me if I didn't pay her the going rate, but it's not my fault she didn't set a reserve price. It's not like she even looked after the wagon. It's covered in anything and everything you can imagine. The rest of the fairground is pristine, so please help. Right away, Miss Uncanny Franny. We'd be happy to help. Now, while we're here, we will do the achievement, which we have been avoiding for the fairground since this is the last level and has no achievement on its own, called Coconut Dodge. Which first involves us finding the coconut stand because we have to knock over coconuts. Knock over all the coconuts, which are around here somewhere. They're in one of these stalls. Apparently they've been available since the very beginning. There they are. Pretty easy. Not gonna work up a sweat doing that. Yep, coconut dodge. We have done it. That was pretty fun. Can't believe we got that out of the way so quick. And now we should be a pretty chill level. Pretty chill. Looking forward after the subway. Hey, why don't you be my first subject? Water divination? Curious. I'll divine your past and future based on the ancient technique of water divination. Wow, I did just mention that. That's pretty uncanny already. You've got a sign out here that says water divination. Let us spray. I get it. It sounds like let us pray. Which is kind of like the opposite of divination. That seems like a whole different avenue. A whole different avenue of faith. I don't think you want to be saying let us spray. You don't know what I could belong to the orthodoxy, and then what? This is kind of tough to get, actually. I expected the sign to clean up easy, but they got some crime on the inside. Alright. And now we'll get up here and we'll get this tarot card or these cards going. Get this wiped out pretty quick, I think, compared to the subway. That's my new benchmark. It used to be, first it was the playground. I didn't want another playground level. Then it was kind of like, I don't want another treehouse level. Now it's the subway was quite a lot to handle. Go ahead and take this extension off. We've learned our lesson. Standing pretty close to this thing as it is. I don't know, this thing's not cleaning up too good. It doesn't look too good, maybe. Well, yeah, I think it's cleaning just fine. It's just, it doesn't look good. Sorry, Uncanny Franny. Your tarot cards look like garbage. Let's see, you got the wheel. I recognize that one. Don't recognize the one in the middle, but it's kind of beside the point. I guess the other one's like supposed to be cups. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that's supposed to be. Is it supposed to be I assume it's supposed to be a tarot card. What? Wow, this is like surprisingly difficult to clean so far. What's going on? Ooh, don't forget the third dimension. Classic mistake. Come on now. There we are. Alright. Hopefully that means the worst is behind us. Literally, as it is now behind us. The signs were difficult, man. That was weird. I expected those to go easy. Okay, that's no problem. Skylight roof rib. Are these skylights? Oh, it's the roof of, never mind. It's the roof of the skylight, I see. Low key though, being a fortune teller in a traveling fair seems like it would be pretty cool if you got to live in your trailer. I mean, I guess you'd have to cart it around, but you'd have a porta potty at all times. That's pretty neat. I don't even have a porta potty here. I just use a regular toilet, and it's not super fun. Just think, you could be in the middle of summer in Florida in August, and you could be using the porta potty instead of your own bathroom. Doesn't that sound fun? Don't you want to be in a porta potty in August in Florida? I know what you're thinking. Yeah, sign me up, dude. What do you mean? Of course. I think we got all these. No, we didn't. Tried to trick me. Those 3 have been got. Trim has been got. We'll get the underside while we're here. Go ahead and spruce this place up a little bit. Oh yes, this is... I miss levels like this for sure. The subway platform. It was fun. Don't get me wrong. It was fun. It was satisfying. It was long. 4 hours is a crazy amount of time to spend on a level. We didn't quite hit those levels, technically speaking, because I was doing laundry and it shortened. Like when I cut that stuff out, it was about 7 minutes shy. But, oh, wow. The video's still uploading as we speak. It's probably going to be late. Not that all of my videos have been on time. I really wanted to be on time, but hey, you know what? I got a video out every day for the month. I can say that. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Given my schedule, that's fantastic. I'm super proud. I also found the time to finish reading the 5th book of the Harry Dresden series. In case you were curious as to where I was at, that's where I've been. But that's where that's going for me. I finished Death Masks, and I'm on to Blood Rites. I gotta say, I kind of find that my opinion is differing considerably from everybody else's. They said that Full Moon is their least. It's like the least favorite Dresden book, and they're saying like I think Grave Peril might have been the turning point for people, or maybe it was. I don't remember. I think it was the one I was reading, but I might be misremembering. It might have been Grave Peril, the 3rd book. But either way, this 5th book just wasn't doing it for me. I did not... Like, it was okay. It was good. It wasn't, like, uninteresting to read. But it just wasn't... It didn't have the same stuff that interested me. Because I was like, oh, a wizard and a detective. Obviously, it's going to be like... Like, the whole thing that interested me was problem solving. He's like okay, of course it is. He's a wizard, which is all about creative application, and he's a detective, which is all about solving puzzles. So, boom, right there, both of them hand in hand. I'm expecting some wizardly shenanigans, some clever situational applications of magic to resolve issues. And then the 5th book seemed like it was mostly just he points wand and says fire, and fire comes out. And like, that's cool. He does have some cool scenes where he does that, and I'm like, wow, that's a cool scene right there. I don't mind action sequences, don't get me wrong, but it's not why I'm here. I would like for that to be the minority, and the problem solving to be in the majority. I would like for, and I've noticed, like I remember we were talking about in the helicopter episode I talked about, there was like people say that he's a chauvinist throughout the first part of the book, or the first, like from the beginning essentially. They're like, oh, he's a chauvinist, it's tiresome to read. And I read it, I'm like, I don't know, he's not really chauvinist. Like, he comes across as like a dude that's not had a lot of he doesn't have a lot of experience in romance. He doesn't have like experience with intimacy and things of that nature, so he's a little awkward, and he's noticing things about women, but he's not disrespectful about it. And in fact, he has pretty good respect for women. He talks about how competent they are. Like Lieutenant Murphy, his contact in the police force, he's like, yeah, she's like 5'0" but she'll kick your ass. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't seem like a chauvinist behavior. He's just saying he notices people's looks, he describes them as their character and stuff, and her character is She's 5 foot nothing and she can kick your ass. That doesn't seem like a stereotypical, like, a chauvinist perspective. But then by book 4, as I discussed, he sort of he immediately, like, one of the characters that's introduced, he's immediately like, yeah, she's got a great ass, sue me. Now, that did take me for a bit of a surprise. I will say that. I was, like, caught off guard by that. I was like, oh, that's not the Dresden that we've been reading about. But I also factored in, like, alright, he was this touch-starved loner dude. Kind of, like, in an awkward position. He didn't really fit. He's, like, the Chicago's only working detective. All of his friends, none of them are magical. He's got Murphy, you know, and she works for, like, she's like the cops, so she doesn't know anything about magic. And he's kind of ostracized from his magical society and all that stuff. So, like, he's that awkward dude, and then he gets a girlfriend, and that's really nice for him. And then something happens to his girlfriend, and they can no longer be intimate with one another. So I imagine, like, it's like a guilty situation where he's kind of like looking for a solution to that problem wildly. He's like super into this, like, staying in the basement and trying to find a solution to this problem that his girlfriend encountered. And he's alone because she can't be around him because of this problem. So he's all cooped up and shit. I sense you're someone who used to be wishy-washy, always flitting from one thing to another. Yeah? What of it? But now you have this renewed focus, like the 15-degree nozzle of a quality pressure washer. I don't know if that's true. But anyway, so yeah, like, they're, like, psychologically, there's different stuff going on with him. Like, yeah, before, he was like this awkward dude that didn't have a lot of romance. And he got, like, someone he found attractive and who liked him for him. And they had, like, all these exciting things going on. And then suddenly that's stripped away, and he's, like, cooped up in his basement without social contact. So I feel like that kind of manifests a little differently. So I kind of give him that difference of opinion. Forgot where I was going with this. Is he a chauvinist, I guess, is the question I'm trying to address here. But then, so he's got all this stuff going on, right? And I don't feel it gets a little weird in the 5th book because his girlfriend comes back into town and they have a romantic scene together, and I don't know, it was very uncomfortable for me. And I'm hoping it doesn't stick in that direction. The other thing that I want the wizard, did I ever get to that point? The wizard problem solving? I think I was, dude, I don't remember what tangent I was on. I kind of went all over the place. The way I'm talking about tonal book changes, I think my favorite one was the 2nd book. Everyone doesn't like that one. Where am I in conversation? I feel like I've lost, my train of thought has gone completely out the window. What is going on? How did I got daisy chained around, brother. I was somewhere and now I'm nowhere. You feel me? Anyway, people don't like the second. I think I'm trying to describe my difference of opinion, and I kind of got sidetracked a couple of times. But that was the first point, was like, he's a chauvinist. I don't know that he's a chauvinist. That did come back to bite me, but I think psychologically speaking, there was a character reason for the way that he acted. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one, and I'm going to renew the opinion that he's not just a chauvinist jerk. And the second thing I learned was that people really disliked the 2nd book, and that's actually my favorite book so far. And I do agree that there is one thing that's kind of handled in a frustrating manner, and that is, I don't really understand why Murphy had the stance that she did throughout the book, because she kind of knew Dresden from the 1st book, and I would think there was a little bit of trust there since she mistrusted him to begin with, and he ended up being right. But I don't know, I'm not a cop in that situation. I don't know how cops think, so that point was kind of relayed to me. I was like, well, you know, sometimes in the legal system, when you really care about justice, things happen. I'm willing to because she had some really cool moments. The second book was just full of these really cool moments, specifically in the first person. The books are written in first person, and I feel like the second book really capitalized on that. They had a really cool scene where he goes in the police station and he drinks a potion, which I don't know what qualifies as a spoiler. The book's pretty old at this point. I don't know. I think the first book was in 2001, so I imagine this. I think it was 2000. I don't remember. Don't quote me. I don't read the dates. I just read the book. Okay. But anyway, so he goes to the police station. And he has this potion, and it's describing the effects of the potion from the first-person perspective, and that's really cool. And then at the end sequence, he does something that's like it alters his psyche, and you get to experience it from the first-person perspective, and that's cool. And then afterwards, these next couple of books, they're all interesting. Don't get me wrong. Like I say, the second one is my favorite, but it's not like it's not a close race. But I'm just describing the difference. Now, this recent book I've read that some people really, or like a lot of people really enjoyed, and they called it, I might be thinking of the next book, but I'm pretty sure they called it the turning point of the series. Like, oh, this is when it gets good. And I don't agree. It was my least favorite of the books so far, which is fun. It's like an inversion of what people truly think. And the reason that I didn't care for it was, first, all that intrigue that I was talking about, the creative applications of magic in the first book. Like, okay, he's relying on evocation a lot more, and essentially evocation is, he calls it like thug magic. It's sloppy, it has its applications, but if you're not super skilled in it, it's very dangerous, and you shouldn't do it without a focus, and all this other stuff. It's where he gets his blasting rod and his staff. Those are his focuses for his magic. And he says he's not good at it. He likes thaumaturgy, which is neat, because thaumaturgy is what he uses as a detective to like track things down and all that stuff, and that's cool. It's like a symbolic sort of magic where you do something on a small scale, happens on a big scale. I liked that. I liked how he applied that. I liked creative applications of that. I think that's cool to explore. I like the potions because it usually like describes how he makes the potions, and it requires a base liquid and then 6 different ingredients, one for each of the senses, and then one for the spirit. So he's like that's how you get your potion. You're like, okay, well, this energizing potion starts with a base of coffee, and then etc. Like a rooster's crow goes into it and stuff of that nature. I like that. I like the symbolic aspects of the magic. Like all these things, like how would you make a potion? That's inventive writing, I think. What would an energizing potion look like if your constraints were that you had to have 6 ingredients, each representing the sense, and then one for the spirit? That's pretty cool. That's fun. And then of course thaumaturgy is like, how will you go about creating this on a small scale so it happens on a big scale? That's neat. And then when he used evocation, it was usually like creatively done. Like the first time, I think, oh no, maybe it wasn't the first time. I'm getting the timeline mixed up. It was in the first book, but he used evocation in several different ways. It wasn't just one and done. There was a scene where he used wind magic, and it wasn't just like, oh, I blow a whirlwind. It was like, I'm in a situation where I can't use fire magic. It would be dangerous for me to try and use fire magic in this situation. But I realized that in this situation, there is like a pocket of air that I could force my magic into and use evocation in this way in which physics becomes my solution. That's the kind of creativity I look for in a wizard detective novel, because that's cool. It kind of puts you in the perspective of the wizard. Like, you're in a situation, you're like, okay, what would I do? And then I don't know that I would have thought of that. That's neat. But what seems to be happening here lately is just like he points wand at problem and fireball, and that's it. And I don't mind that some of the time, but I don't like that to be the majority. Because at that point I'm just reading a detective novel, and instead of a gun, he's using a wand that shoots fire. Suddenly you feel the need to wash away the sins and malaise of the unfortunate. That's so. I don't know that that's true. This isn't just dislodging moss and muddy streaks, it's almost become a compulsion for you, a compulsion that's threatening to take over your life. Uh-huh. But anyway, that's what I've noticed in this later book was like very like that. And the last couple of books were like that. I can overlook Summer Night, the fourth book. Let's see, the third book was... I'm trying to remember what all was going on and how the magic was all used. And obviously, like, I'm reading them pretty quickly, so it's hard to keep track of absolutely everything. But that also kind of contributes to the point, because it's like, what am I remembering from these stories? And it's essentially like I'm not getting enough of what I'm looking for or what I enjoyed. Now, they did have interesting facets to them. Like, the fourth book was pretty big on world building. It kind of zoomed out and gave you all these different factions, and it was kind of like a political story, not in the American, or not in the global sense of the word, but political in like all these different factions vying for power in different ways. And that was neat. The world opened up. There was all these different, like, we got to see some of the Never Never. We got to see all these different things happening, and that was cool. We got to see the underworld of Chicago. We got to see all sorts of cool stuff. We got to see the Chicago above Chicago. We got to see, like, we got to see some cool stuff. The world really opened up, and I enjoyed that. And then in the third book, they had some pretty cool depictions of like that's where the Never Never first came into play, and there was like, they had sort of like this ghost situation going on, which is where it got its name, Grave Perils. And there were some interesting depictions of like, he uses this thing called the Sight where he opens his third eye, and he has some really, whenever he does that and the soul gazes are probably my favorite parts in the book, period, because it tells you so much about the character and what he sees as the protagonist. And it's always done in like this unique symbolic way, and it's so cool. I love it when those aspects come into play. So like, that's the kind of magic that I'm looking for. It's one, creative applications of magic to solve problems, especially with limited resources, right? Like, you want it, like I was describing my situation with it kind of creates like a puzzle situation, kind of like I was describing when I played Dead Space, and I was playing it on hard mode, and I had like a limited number of bullets, and I had limited options. Essentially, I had to decide how I was going to play it because that's all I had. And that is interesting to me because that makes the problem a bit of a puzzle, and you know, I want to kind of solve through it too. I'm trying to think like, okay, he's got a shield bracelet. How's he gonna handle this? This was used on this, so he doesn't have that anymore, and that's fried, and he's busted up, so he's kind of got limited magic. And of course, I'm not going to be able to create it like the perfect solution, but it does kind of engage me more in that way mentally. Whereas when you're just kind of blasting at things, I don't know, it just doesn't hit the same way. And what interests me also is like, if my viewpoints are reversed, I wonder if that's kind of what caused this change, this shift from the early novels, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, I don't know how the later novels are, and by the fifth book, I assume he's still kind of figuring out the overall tone. Like by book 18, I'm sure the later books, the later it gets, the better it gets, right? Because he's getting experience. He started as a grad student. That was what his first novel was, or high school student. I don't remember. He was a student regardless. So his first book, I imagine, was pretty mucky compared to his 18th book. And I loved his first book. I don't have any complaints with his first book, aside from like that one point where I was like, that doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel like a good reveal there. And like I said, I don't know what the spoilers are, so I don't want to spoil anything. But there was one moment in the first book where like he's stuck, he doesn't have any answers, and he's remorseful about this thing that happened, and he goes back to the scene and he kind of falls asleep there. And another character that we've never seen before And he was kind of hinted at. We'll give it that. He was kind of hinted at that he existed. It was kind of hinted that this dude existed. But that was it. It was just like there was one object that he found in scene 2 that hinted of the existence of this character, but we didn't even know that that was necessarily this specific character until he appeared in this coincidental moment. And he just happened, like, there wasn't really a logical reason for Dresden to be where he was, and it just so happened that this guy showed up who had the answer that he was looking for that allowed him to put all the pieces together, and I felt like that was unsatisfying. That part I will say. Okay, these staircase handrails are kind of giving me some trouble here, so I'm going to focus on getting some of this other stuff. Seeing if I can't get this cleaned up first. But yeah, I'll say that part was kind of... I didn't really care for that in the first chapter. But as far as storytelling goes, man, that stuff was... like, you couldn't put it down. You're reading it. It's a page... They're all page turners. They're all freaking great in terms of storytelling. It's just a matter of, like, what your preferences are, and I can't help but feel that the first 3 books had something going for them that was kind of lost. In the 4th book, I kind of excuse again because that was like world building. It opened up the world quite a bit, so I can sacrifice some of that for that, and some of it I can attribute to like a narrative difference. But I think my curiosity, what I was trying to talk about that I spaced off and forgot, I was wondering if, because of my difference in taste, if it has something to do with the marketability of the book. Like, other people don't care much for these things that I cared about, so I kind of got waylaid in favor of making something more action-oriented, something that readers could more immediately digest, which I'm not disparaging. But it does have me curious if that's the case. Like, the author figured out, oh, this critical response to my second book was not good, so I need to mix things up and step away from that. And if that's the case, that's kind of a shame, because I think it did some stuff pretty well, and I kind of missed that in these coming books, or the books that I've read so far. The second book, I think, in terms of that stuff, was definitely my favorite. It had a bunch of cool stuff going on for it that I feel like was lost. I think my second favorite book is going to be Summer Night right now. Of the 5, I've only got 5 books that I've read. I don't know if anyone really... I don't know if any of you are even reading Dresden. I'm just kind of yammering on here because I don't have anyone else to yammer to. But I think my favorite book of the 5 right now is probably Full Moon, just because of that depiction of the potion, for one. The scene in the police station was fire. There was a lot of cool stuff that happened there, especially for Sergeant Murphy. Though there is some criticism regarding, like, her responsibility and what transpired. And I kind of don't know where I stand on that, because, again, I'm not really... Like, I remember when I first read... I say that like I read it multiple times, but when I read the book, she was kind of getting on my nerves, because I didn't... Like, from my perspective, and maybe it's because I'm a reader and not a cop, right? I'm not her, I'm me. But it doesn't make sense to me that she felt the way that she did, and that she acted the way she did, because, I mean, after the first book, you think she'd be like, okay, there's a lot of stuff that I don't really know that Dresden does, because he's a wizard, and all of this stuff is very, like, above my understanding of things. You would think there'd be some kind of, now granted, there are lives at risk, right? So she's a cop, there are lives at risk. She actually cares about her job. She's not a dirty cop. She's not a crappy cop. She's not a wizard. She was kind of given this special investigations, which is all these cases that regular cops can't solve, so they kind of stick somebody there when they don't like them. And that's where she's stuck. And that's probably a frustrating place to be when you're a competent cop who cares about their job. But she calls on Dresden, and he's like the expert consultant in the matter. I think it's just like a psychic consultant sort of deal. They don't say... I don't know that they put him down as a wizard on paper, but whatever. And, like, I get it in the first book, but in the second book you think, okay, we solved that horrific crime that was like, and granted it did have some repercussions for her professionally, because it had some There's some weird stuff with like how Dresden had to handle it that probably reflected poorly on her for using Dresden. But I feel like with the appropriate explanations in place, that should be easily be like, oh, okay, I'm not happy about it, but I get it. Versus what happened. Now, maybe that's not the case. Maybe I'm just, I don't have enough experience in that sort of stuff to be able to say appropriately, like whether that's an appropriate response or not. Especially when, like again, there are professional repercussions, and it does, like, okay, I'll grant some suspension of disbelief because I'm not a cop. I don't know what it's like. I don't, like, if I were in her situation, would I behave differently? I don't know. I think so, but I don't know. And also, she's not me. So that's, like, we have completely different mindsets. But that was a big, that was the big issue for me in that book. Otherwise, I love that book. That book was super cool. There were a lot of cool hype moments. There were a lot of those introspective moments I was talking about where you see stuff from Harry's perspective and it actually drives the point home. Like, what is it like to experience this? Like, when he drinks this potion, what does that look like to a person? And it doesn't just, like, it's not described in third person. I don't know if it could have been done as effectively. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And then there's the scene, like I said, in the police station where Murphy gets her moment. All the cops, really, they get their moment. That's such a good scene, man. That was so cool. Every aspect of that. And even like oh wow, looking into your future, it's really quite amazing. Oh. Is that it? I don't want to spoil it for you, so I'm going to be deliberately vague here, but there are things you're going to do and see beyond your imagination and in the next little while that are going to blow your mind. Oh. I'll go so far as to say that without you, this entire planet is lost. Oh? Okay. But yeah, there's a scene in the police station that's really cool. It's got a lot of high action moments. Dresden gets a chance to do some thaumaturgy. That's neat. But also, there's like this whole thing with the potion that I was describing that was very cool to experience, but it also becomes a hindrance at the same time. Like, he does it, it's cool, it's working, and then suddenly it creates a new problem for him to solve. That is freaking cool. That's good storytelling. I thoroughly enjoyed the police station scene. And so far, I haven't experienced another scene where I'm like, okay, now aside from Summer Night. Summer Night is an anomaly. It has a lot of cool stuff too. A lot of world building. You know what? I take that back. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens in the other books as well. But I will say that police station scene is probably my favorite so far. Especially compared to this fifth book that I just read, which was... They had a lot of neat threads going on, but then I feel like it was kind of rushed in certain places. And I actually noticed a continuity issue, which I then looked up, and apparently it's like a well-known thing. He goes into this situation and he's like, I have to use a shield even though I lost my bracelet. And it's like, oh, so he's channeling without a focus again, or he's using a spell without a focus again, which usually proves to be less effective than if he had his focus. And in this case, the shield bracelet is his focus for using the shield, like manifesting a shield around him, and he doesn't have that, so he's kind of at a disadvantage. Using a shield in this case comes at a disadvantage. But then, like, not even the next paragraph, something happens that causes the shield to start cracking and break, and he says that he feels the bracelet burning. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? There's no bracelet there, dog. So I did notice a continuity issue, and it just so happens that is the scene that I was saying felt a little rushed. They set this whole thing up, this whole big deal. It was like a big deal, whole big thing throughout the book. How am I going to do this? I got to do this. Oh, I'm not looking forward to doing this. It's going to be terrible. This thing that I've got to do is not looking good for me. And then he immediately like starts overcoming the challenge. And then there's like an issue. There's an issue that arises while he's doing this challenge that completely like undoes the significance of the challenge anyway. And I don't know. I wasn't thrilled with that scene. It was supposed to be one of the big scenes, and I feel like it kind of suffered because of that sensation that it was rushed. Even the challenge itself wasn't like a super detailed experience. It did introduce an interesting thing, but otherwise it was just kind of like he showed up, he immediately resolved the event that was happening, and then had to deal with some nasty bullshit that happened. It was kind of anticipated that was going to happen, but he still had to deal with that nonetheless. It wasn't a super like, they didn't linger on it very long, and it was like, why did you spent the whole book hyping this moment up, some big thing that he had to do, and then he's done. He did it. It caught me off guard. And there were some other cool parts to it. It wasn't like it was a terrible book. Like I said, I was entertained the whole way through. It's just qualitatively, it just didn't have the same oomph. So it's interesting to me that so far my views have just not aligned with the popular opinion. I will say that book 4, I think everyone says is good. It was good. It was absolutely good. Book 3 was good. Wasn't my favorite. I think I liked book 2 more than book 3. I think if I had to order them, it would be like 4, 2, 3, 1, 5 so far. That's just me. And I think it's not a matter of skill, because I think his writing definitely became more adept. Like I said, his first book was obviously like he was still in school, whether it was grad school or whatever, post grad, high school. I don't remember. But first book was kind of a little rough around the edges. But by book 5, you would think that things were progressing in an upward direction, and that one kind of felt like it went backwards, which is why I don't think I liked it too much. Kind of went backwards in terms of the application of magic, and then it kind of went backwards with that weird intimate scene that I didn't jive with. I was like, okay, buddy, I don't think I need to be reading this smut at work. You know what I mean? And that's another thing that like stuck out to me was when I went to the book signing, there were a lot of children there, and I was like, why, or not like young children, like 10 years old. Well, there might have been a 10-year-old. They were pretty young. There were some pretty young kids there. It wasn't like they were the most obvious demographic. There's like probably people my age and a little bit older was the main demographic. But there were some people there that looked like they were under at least 16. They were like 16 down to like, I think maybe 6 or 7, I would say. There was like a young kid there. Or maybe they're kids, people just looking younger. Maybe I forget what children look like. I don't know. They were just, I was like, there's no way they're reading these books. There's no way their parents are letting them read this book. This is crazy. And I don't know how graphic to get to like drive this point home, but there's some stuff in there that's like, damn, Dresden, you're a little bit of a freak today. What is going on, boy? You know, there was some spice. It wasn't just like lying in the missionary position for the sole purpose of reproduction. It was pretty crazy. I was like, ooh, I need to shield my eyes. I legitimately, I was reading it at work, and I was like, I need to get through this section fast, because if someone reads over my shoulder, they're gonna think I'm reading a pornography. Oh man, it was very awkward. I didn't want anything to do with that chapter. And I mean, from a character standpoint, again, there's always like the character psychology aspect of it, where it's like, well, this was important to demonstrate. I think the problem was it wasn't communicated very well in that regard. It was, I don't know, it didn't come across as like an important character moment. They kind of like foreshadowed it a lot because there's like tension between these characters. They were romantic and stuff, and you're like, okay, I know there's going to be a romance scene, but I wasn't expecting that. That was. It kind of came out of left field, and I think I have seen some criticisms of that, where the consensus is like that was a little indulgent, they say. But to be fair, in that situation, I mean, he was probably indulging. Like, it wasn't the author indulging in the scene; it was Dresden indulging. But that's tough. That's a tough sell. That's a tough sell for me, dog. I was because I recommended this series to people at work. I was like, oh, I just got the full set, and I had this extra copy to you because they read too. And I'm like, hey, do you want to read it and test the series out and see what you think? And I'm like, what's gonna happen if they get to book 5 and they get to this scene? Like, wow, this is the kind of stuff you read, huh? It's gonna be too much. I don't know. No, not me. Couldn't be. I don't read that kind of smut. I don't know where you got that. My book 5 was completely different. I don't know where you got that scene. You know what I mean? It was pretty wild. So that's what's going on with that. And again, I think I think it was an issue of growing pains, maybe, like he was experimenting as an author and he wasn't quite sure, or maybe maybe he did exactly what he wanted to do. Maybe he accomplished exactly what he wanted to. But what I got was that from a character aspect, okay, they're separated and he's been alone for a long time and he wants the same stuff that he had before. And like I said, it's been a long time and she's back in town. And they're both kind of pining for each other, but they can't, but they want to, but they can't, but they want to. And like in this situation, the floodgates kind of bust loose. And like I said, it's alluded to like this being an issue the entire time, because it's like, oh, he's commenting on the sort of things that she says and the sort of things that she does. It kind of alludes to like, I find this attractive. I find this attractive. I find this exciting, but I can't, but I find it exciting. And like, there is like a tension there that you know is building. But like I said, it was indulgent and it came on very suddenly. And I was thrown for a loop. So that's why I don't know, it felt a little awkward. Maybe he's just coming into his own. Maybe he's exploring different themes. Because like it's not a super big focus in the other books. He does comment on people's appearance. Like I said when I was breaking it down about the other books, like, okay, it did like strike me as sudden, like he's suddenly a little bit cruder when it comes to describing this person, because he's like, oh, she's got a great ass, and that comes out of nowhere based on the other 3 books. But psychologically it kind of makes sense given his position, so I can kind of give that some room to breathe. And then this one is just really it just really came out of left field. Oh man. It's fun. It's a good it is an adventure to read for sure. And like I say, it's a good book. It's a good book. They're all good books. They have each one of them seems to have their own little issues and quirks. But so far I'm pleased. I plan on reading the next book ASAP. I just felt like talking about it because, like I said, I don't really have anyone to talk about it with. So thank you for indulging me in that. It is a fun series. I can't believe that there are children that read it and people... I don't know. That's crazy to me. Because I felt weird reading it. I can't imagine like a parent reading it and being like, oh yeah, here's the 5th book, Timmy. Hey Doc, how's the wash? I'm back up on Rumblin' Rushless. Okay, Calvin Miller. What can I do for you? Just calling to waste my time or what? Never thought I'd say this in a lifetime, but the data is off the charts. Yeah. It's pretty neat, bud. Happy for you. I hope I'm wrong, but she looks ready to blow, and if she does, Muckingham is in real danger. It's okay, man. I got my little sprayer here. I'll just turn all that magma into rock. Just turn all that magma into rock, buddy. Nothing to worry about. Alright, 80%. Got this back wagon. Might as well, right? I think it might be fun to kind of do like a book club sort of podcast situation. I don't know that I'm going to do that. Because like I said, my free time's kind of limited. But it would be fun to like, okay guys, this week we're going to be reading this book. If you want to join us. And then we could, like, there could be a spoiler free, or there could be a space for us to discuss the book with spoilers. And that would be neat. It's kind of tough to be vague also. But I feel like I want to be vague enough that like people who are going to read the book don't get spoiled, but also like descriptive enough that people know I know exactly what part you're talking about. Like that scene, I don't think anyone's going to mistake. Like there was an intimate scene where some wild stuff went down. People are going to be like, I know exactly the part of the book you're talking about. Or the police station scene. People are going to know exactly the part I'm talking about. But they're like, people who haven't read it be like, oh, you go to the police station, what happens there? You know what I mean? I keep saying you know what I mean. I noticed that I have some sayings that I picked up that I use as kind of like fillers, and I don't like it. I frown upon my own language. Or usage of language, perhaps. But there is a lot of cool stuff to talk about with this series that I'd like to talk about. Obviously, I just can't stop talking about it. I keep talking about it. I'm excited because this next book is going to be the 6th book, and once I finish that, I'll be like 1/3 of the way through. 1/3 of the way through the Dresden Files, and that's pretty exciting. It's only February. I got the books like halfway through January. It's a little over a book a week, which used to be my target. I went through a phase, I don't remember what year it was, probably 2016, 2017, where I was like, I'm going to read a book a week, and that lasted for a couple of weeks. I'll say 3 or 4. Of course, I wasn't reading fiction, I was reading nonfiction, which it was interesting nonfiction, but it was like, I don't know, I just didn't. I got to one book in the list that I was interested in reading, and I stopped reading it. I don't know, it didn't hit quite the same way that the other ones did. So I kind of just dropped it. And then once I dropped the book, I was like, well, it's part of this list, so if I'm not doing the book, I might as well not do the list. And if I'm not doing the list, then I don't really know what I'm going to read, so I'm just not. And fiction's kind of a rougher place to be, because I'm not really sure. Like, you know, when you're buying a video game or you're gonna watch a movie, you kind of know what you're getting into. You kind of see the trailers. You have an idea. There's a certain amount of knowledge you're going. Like the product that I'm buying, I kind of have a notion of whether or not I'm gonna like it. It may not be the perfect notion. I may get it and it's terrible, but I have some notion about what the game is, what I'm getting into. And then with books, it's kind of just, you don't really know. You're kind of just going off the words of others. Like, oh, it's a really good book. Yeah, well, I've seen what you think about really good movies. And brother, let me tell you, it's not a good movie. So I don't know. I don't really know how to break into the book scene. Other than, like, obviously, I talked about Dune. Dune seems like an interesting book. I don't know much about it. I haven't seen the movies. I'm just going based on, like, just on atmosphere. Based on vibes. Okay, where is this wall stuff at? Oh, I got the wall. I don't know when I got the wall, but I got it. Alright. But yeah, fiction. It can be really good or it can be really hit or miss, I guess. But I am interested to see how things progress in terms of storytelling. Hopefully I see more of the stuff that I am missing. And kind of he veers away from some of the stuff that I'm like, I don't know about all that. I think we could have done without that scene. Like I said, there's a lot of cool stuff. And I am looking forward to... That was one of the downsides to getting the 18th book signed, because I'm like, by the time I actually get to read the 18th book, I don't know when that is. I've got like 15 other books to get through. I think at the time I had finished the 4th book. Yeah, because I was starting Death Masks. And then I went a couple of days without reading anything, so... There is that. There was the whole snowstorm, and I was trying to get my video situation sorted, which I don't even think I got to accomplish that, which is kind of depressing, but it did slow me down a little bit on the reading. Now I'm getting into Blood Rights, and that book started phenomenally. You know it's going to be a good book when the opening line is, "The building was on fire, and it wasn't my fault." Hopefully that kind of indicates that it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek thing. Because one of the criticisms of the book was, yeah, he's just kind of blasting his way through. And it's fun and entertaining, but he's just kind of blasting his way through. And I think he even talked about that in the Q&A. He mentioned like he's going to run into problems that he can't blast through. So I think that's a criticism, and maybe he took it to heart. So that first line is kind of a tongue-in-cheek, like, the building's on fire, but it wasn't my fault. We're not doing that this time, I swear. I don't know. It could be interesting. I'm intrigued as to where it's going to go from there. He's got a box full of puppies. I don't know what the situation with that is. I only read like the first 2 pages, so it's not that big of a spoiler. But he's got like some box full of puppies, and he's in a burning school building? Question mark. Crazy stuff with Dresden all the time. What's he doing, man? What's he got going on? Yeah, that's what we got to look forward to, figuring out what that's all about. Alright, oh, the 3rd dimension for the canopy. How could I have forgotten? No? Time to bust out the white nozzle, I guess. We'll find you wherever you may be. I'll get you clean. I'll get you clean, buddy. There we are. Well, that volcano is kind of looking a little active, ain't it? Wow. It's a lot of orange. A lot more orange than I remembered, that's for sure. Just don't make them the way they used to. Don't make them the way they used to. This was a little more challenging than I anticipated, but it's cleaned up quite well. Wasn't too bad, especially when you're just yapping the whole time. An hour is a lot more reasonable than 4, I can tell you that. And also part of the problem is they put all these extra stuff over here, which I get. I get it. But what is all this stuff? You said you bought the cart proper. Why is all this stuff dirty? It should have been in the cart. The cart could be dirty and this could be covered in a layer of dust, but why is it all mucky? Let's see about using this. Nope, that's some dense crap right there. Oh, the cat's in the crystal ball. Hello, Ulysses. Hi, Ulysses. Hi, buddy. What are you doing? That's a lot of caked on dirt. Man, oh man. Man, oh man. Come on. Then you make it so hard to get around the dang thing. All this extra stuff is really what drives me wild. Like I said, I think the cart, I don't mind the cart itself. Like, could you not, like, put the chest slightly out of the way so I could walk around the posts if you're going to make me get all the way down to clean the bottom of the crystal ball and table? Give me some space. What's the trunk even for? Is that, like, the lunchbox? Is that an ice chest disguised as a fortune teller thing, or what? What do we got going on? Oh, and then the underside is just barely visible. Of course, of course. I'd hate for that to be something I could easily clean. Looks like the fun parts of the level are all over, and now we're stuck with the crap. Can't even see most of this stuff. There we are. I noticed we have not yet seen the task list, which means we're still missing things. Even at 99%, I know this may come as a shock to you. It certainly comes as a shock to me. Table cleaned. Oh wow, we're missing even with the table. We get the crystal, not even the crystal ball is done yet. What is going on? Okay, even with that done, what are we missing? What are we missing? Skylight windows, we missed one. Okay. Which one? Not any of those. That one. Okay, what's next? Roof fascias. Which one? Show me which one. That's the skylight roof, so it might not be that. Must be this other side. Yep. Oh, it's in this weird spot that you can't quite reach because the table's there. I see. Some on the back side. Yeah, yeah. The other roof fascia's not done. All this decorative trim. Yikes. Okay, roof fascia's done. I assume this is the decorative trim, but I can't really see what I'm doing. It's a wee bit of a headache, isn't it? Yeah, I assumed this would be a problem. I guess we'll put it over on here and get the other side and hope that's enough. Yeah, I got some grime here. 2 more of those. I'm assuming this is one of them, but I can't really, it's not letting me highlight it to see. Roof fascia, roof underside, roof fascia, roof underside. So I guess we'll just roof decorative trims here. Okay, okay. Okay. And apparently that one seems to have a similar situation to the one on the back. Which I can see why it's tough to get from here. There we are, and now roof trims, which I'm not sure what that means. Set up here. These? There are 3 of those I didn't get? Find that quite alarming. Oh man, these little corners, I tell you. This should be it. There it is. Is this the wishy washers? I got your details from your friend Harper, who's helping us with a historic dig. Fancy getting involved? Sure, Sonia Alamoudine would be happy to, but in the meantime, look at her. A fine clean. Wagon looks great. Thanks so much. Mind how you go, eh? Well, that'll do it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. Tomorrow, we'll be, cleaning the ancient statue from the looks of things. Until then, I'll catch you later.